Welcome, Thrivers, to this week's episode of Women Thriving in Business podcast. I'm so excited to have with me here Stephanie Taylor, who is the founder of not one, but two companies, HMO Heaven, as well as Rent to Rent Success. So welcome, Stephanie. We're so delighted to have you here today.
Hi, Nikki. It's great to be with you.
Yes, and thank you for joining us from the UK. And I love it when I have my international guests on because it really just highlights the world of business and that women are thriving all over the place. So delighted to have you here. So let's just get right into it. So tell us about your businesses as well as what got you started on your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I love the idea of women thriving all over the world. And I have been in all sorts of different positions as a woman, and certainly in the early days was not thriving, but more of a surviving sort of tack. But about 6 years ago, I got into business when I was working for a corporate as a financial services contractor at a bank. So reasonably good pay, and I'd sort of clawed my way up the ranks from very low paid positions earlier on. And I was sort of feeling a little bit comfortable with that. But then my mum got ill, and I got this phone call one morning from mum. And I was just getting ready to go to work, really focused on, I was giving a presentation. I wanted it all to go perfectly. I was a little bit worried about it. And when she called me, I didn't really give her much attention on the phone. And she started apologizing for calling me, disturbing my morning. Quickly, she got off the phone. I went into work, I did my presentation, and I was just sitting in the afternoon, patting myself on the back, thinking how clever I was. It all gone so well, didn't know what I was worried about. Aren't I amazing? Etc., etc. And then it just came to me, you know how your mind does that to you sometimes. I just had that thought of mum waking up in the morning, just reaching out. She was on her own, not feeling very well, just reaching out for a bit of connection. Maybe she just woke up with anxiety or worry and just wanted to know everything's going to be okay. And I didn't give that to her. And I just thought I'd made my job much more important. And if you had asked me, I'd have said my mum was more important, but my actions were that my job was so much more important. And I thought, I don't want this to be it forever. I don't want to always be like this. How do people not need to come to work in the same way that I do and be there and kind of work hard? And I was 45 at the time, and that's what gave me the push, because I was scared, but it felt like it's now or never moment. And although I was scared about starting, I was also had the anxiety about not starting and just getting older and older being at this job, and also my mum getting older and older and not having the flexibility. And so when I started thinking about it, I was very nervous about business. I didn't think that I had the skills to be in business to that level where I could replace my income easily. And cutting a long story, I came across real estate. I decided real estate was perhaps a way to do it because people can accidentally make money in real estate. And I thought, well, if other people can do it accidentally, maybe even me, maybe even I could do it if I tried. And that's how it all started.
So as you were thinking about that, and I know you have two companies and one also that you co-founded with your sister. So not only did you leap out there, but you brought some others with you, right? So as you were thinking about getting started, you said real estate seemed to be a path. If you did it intentionally, you could be successful. But as you were getting started, what were some of the surprises? I'm going to ask you that. What were some of the surprises that you came across as you were really trying to make this transition from being very successful in corporate and having spent years of your life, blood, sweat, and tears, right, climbing that ladder, to transitioning to something that was less linear, right? A different path. And like you said, a little bit scary.
I would say I was moderately successful in corporate, so I felt like I was in a good place. But anyway, just to go back, because I didn't really realize that I could do real estate, but I thought it might be a way. And then I started researching, and I found out there's a way where you can manage other people's properties and sublet them legally. And a lot of people were doing it badly. And I thought I could do it better just by bringing care to it. And through naivety, I thought I could absolutely do this. So I'd gone from not being sure whether I could run a business to absolutely certain that I could do this business managing properties.
Mm-hmm.
And that was called HMO Heaven. So we're managing these house share properties, big properties, student properties, but with young professionals in. And for each property, we could make over £500 a month per property. So I know, is that about $750? I'm not sure. And some of them over £1,000. So maybe that's about $1,200 a month. So it was a really great business and you didn't need too many properties and we were doing a fabulous job. So the biggest surprise for me now on the other side, being in business, is it's no harder than working your corporate career. All of the trials and tribulations that you have in doing your career, your corporate career, you think there's, or I thought there was this mystical world where there's these business people, they do something different and it's very, very different. They're very, very clever. They know something special. No, all the same BS that comes up when you're in your corporate also comes up, and not even BS, but just different challenges, different obstacles, different things you've never seen before. And the same approach that you take in corporate, which is, I can do this, I will manage this, I will find someone that, or somebody will know how to sort this out, I will be able to do it. And so I just found that just going from fear to just knowing that even if I didn't know in that moment exactly what to do, I know what my next step is, even if it's just to find out the information or work out who would have the answer to this query.
And so how did you go from HMO Heaven to rent success? And how did you entice, maybe you recruit your sister to be a part of that company?
Well, my sister was in both companies and my sister's very cautious and she was really a high flyer in business and getting these huge bonuses, which were like people's annual salaries. But she, luckily for me, had taken a break to take a different path in life. And she'd been away on holiday in the Caribbean for 3 months and she'd come back ready to decide what to do next, which she hadn't decided. And so at that moment, I just mentioned, and I was very excited and I was very sure that I could do it. And so I was telling her what the business was and everything. And to my surprise, she said, oh, let's go in. I'll do it with you 50-50. And thank goodness that she did say that, because we've got very different skill sets and the skill sets are very complementary. And so it would have been tough for me on my own and for her on her own. But we started the second business because we were doing the first business. And when you're in real estate, probably the same in America, there's a lot of sleazy people around saying, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this. And you don't know whether to believe. And I certainly was very skeptical. But when we did start, I thought, oh my goodness, it is actually true, some of what they're saying. And so I started just doing little Facebook videos. I'm naturally a shy person. And so when I would come to press send on those videos, publish, I would be so mortified because I would do a very shrieky voice because I was so terrified. And even just hearing it back, I just used to want to but something just gave me the courage to think it's okay for it not to be perfect. And I just used to press publish on all these little videos. And people were so interested to see what we were doing. And they were so keen to learn more. But we didn't want to class ourselves as teachers, or we didn't want to charge people money. We were just putting it out there free of charge. And it was only after some time had gone past, people were coming to us saying they bought these expensive courses from other people, but could they have this bit from us? Because the person they've just paid so many £1,000s to buy this course has not given them that bit. So could we give it to them? And yes, I was so amazed, or shocked is the word, what these people were selling for such a high price that I thought, oh, we could actually do this properly.
Right.
And actually support people on the way. So as well as giving people the information, which of course they do need, also give them the support, the weekly calls, the supportive group with the daily interactions. And really more than anything, as well as the information, they need the coaching to get over themselves. You know, like we all do at the beginning, when you're taking on something new, it's all that getting over your own resistance.
Right.
So we then set up Rent to Rent Success to help people to make money from properties they don't own the ethical way.
I love that. You bring up a great point because there's so much information out there. Just like you looked it up and did research and you got started, there's so much information out there. We have everything we need on the internet or in lots of forms, whether it be written or video or whatever. There's thousands of books out there. So I don't think people lack information, but they do lack. Sometimes it's the mindset. Sometimes it's the encouragement. Sometimes it's the feedback of, oh, if you did this the right way or you made a mistake, but this is what you learned from it. And so I think what you are doing with Rent to Rent Success is helping people, like you said, helping them get out of their own way.
Yeah, totally. And I think we all need that coaching help in some aspects of life.
Yeah. And it sounded like you needed that kick of like, oh, wait a minute, these people are selling an inferior product for lots of money.
Yeah.
So we should get in on this. So can you talk to me a bit about some of the accomplishments that you're most proud of during your time in business?
Yeah, well, I think I was surprised when I realized in the UK, there's something called the VAT threshold. It's a tax threshold. It's £80,000 a year. And only a small percentage of businesses go over that. And I was surprised at that. So we've got actually more than 2 businesses. We've got the property management business. We've got the property training business, but we've also got businesses where we buy properties and develop them and make them into flats. What I was super proud of is the work that we do in every single business. The people that we work with are delighted to work with us. That's what we want. That's the experience that we want to create for them. The results that they want, that they're able to get through working with us. But also the value that we've created for them has equated into revenue in those businesses, which has far exceeded what we used to earn, when I was worried that I wouldn't be able to do business too. And now in less than a month, we make what I used to make in the whole year working for somebody else. But one of the things that I was also really proud of is when we published our book, A Rent to Rent Success, which teaches people how to make money from properties they don't own the ethical way. It's the ethical 6-step system for rent to rent success. But my mum, she can read and write. I don't want to, because somebody was confused when I said that. She can read and write. But for her, it was, hard work. She didn't really read for pleasure. She didn't start school until she came to the UK at the age of 12. And she worked hard, and she wasn't a natural, but she worked hard and she took her qualifications and became a nurse, which was a typical thing for Black women to do at that time. And when we wrote the book, she didn't read it. I didn't think that she was. I wasn't at all put out, but she was very proud of us. But then the book came out. We did the audio book, and she said to me, how do you get the audio book then? How do you listen to the audio book? And one time when she came to visit, I've got an adult son as well, and he was there and he put it onto her phone. Well, Mum likes to do a lot of walking. She got a Fitbit, one of those step counters. She does 20,000 steps a day, which is phenomenal. She's in her 70s and she's been doing that for the last few years now. But anyway, so she goes out with her walking and she was listening to the audio. So she listened to it in a couple of days, and then she came in and she was just crying. And she just said, I read the book. I'm so proud of you girls. And I was just taking it all in that back in the day when she came to this country, the United Kingdom, there were still the signs up, no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. It was really tough. And also back in those days, not just anybody could write a book. And things have changed so much. And when I just saw how proud she was as she was reflecting back, it just made me aware of how much opportunity we have nowadays and the privilege that we have to live now. I know there are so many things that we can complain about, but also we have so much privilege and so much opportunity that it really is an incredible blessing. And I'm so proud of that book that made Mum cry.
I love that. That is amazing. I mean, I think often as we have accomplishments in life, you really want your family to be proud of you. And so I think it's amazing that your mom took the initiative and effort and then also gave you that feedback of listening and taking it in and then really understanding what it means. That is a gift. Now, where is your mother from originally?
So she's from Jamaica originally. And
Okay.
my dad, yeah.
Got it. And is she the type, was she telling the family back home, like my daughter's wrote a book?
Yeah, she's asked for now. She's got a copy on her table in her hallway. So if anybody comes to the house, obviously. And she was asking for a hardback copy because it's a paperback on Amazon. But she asked for a hardback. We don't have it in hardback yet, but she wants that so she can put that in her hallway. Yeah. But the biggest thing, I suppose, public wise, is talking about the book. The book in this niche of property, rent to rent, is the best book on Amazon. It's got the highest ranking by far of any other book on the topic, the highest number of reviews, well over 200. And it's usually in the top 10 of real estate books on Amazon at any given moment. So I'm really proud of that as well, because the other people who are reading it, who aren't my mom, are finding it really helpful and leaving reviews and ratings.
Right. You have a multi-pronged approach to thinking about what success looks like for your business, lifting up the vendors and tradespeople that you work with, as well as providing housing, as well as making your mom proud and sharing your insights and genius with other people who may want to do what you're doing. So I love kind of what your idea of success looks like. So I really just appreciate that.
Do you know what, Nikki? Sometimes when I look at my life now, it feels so full, but also we have so much space, but we get to choose. I suppose in some ways, so it feels so much more fulfilling than what we were doing before, just because of the meaning that we attach to it, because we've created this. And it's not always easy, as you know, in business, and there are challenges that come up that really try you, as you know, but it just feels overall just so much better. And so I feel so grateful to have found that, because if I hadn't had that moment, when you have that moment where a light bulb goes on and you think, I could do something different, I must do something different, and I could have just gone through my life without ever stepping into this world.
You talk about challenges. So what have been some of the biggest or most meaningful challenges that you faced during your time in business?
Well, there's a few. I'll talk about the most recent one, I think. So in 2020, well, there was two parts of it in 2020, because we had our property management business and the country was shut down with coronavirus. The government said to people, don't pay your rent, or nobody can be evicted. They didn't exactly say don't pay your rent, but it could have been taken like that. But people might not have been able to pay their rent. So that was a shock, because we just thought, now the government said that, obviously landlords like us would be subsidizing that. So our business might suffer and we might not get through it financially wise. At the time, we thought it would be temporary, much more temporary than it actually was. So I think with a challenge like that, where you actually have no idea what's going to happen or how it's going to affect your business, I just found it helpful. So I really felt like punched in the belly with that one. And so while I was sort of reeling and lying on the floor, I just thought, you know what? We just have to stand up, do the best we can, and talk to all the people that we're in business with, so the property owners and the housemates who lived with us, and say, look, this is what's happening. This is what we know so far. We're going to do our best for you, and we'll let you know if anything else comes up. And that just took all of the challenge, or a lot of the challenge off it, the weight off it, because we just sort of acknowledge, actually, we don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to do our best and we're going to communicate with you. And that experience really taught me, we can get through anything. And then we've had other ones. You've probably heard, anybody who does property developments will tell you about building contractors, parts not arriving. If you remember in Corona in 2020, that was when we were starting one of our developments, which was from a commercial property into 4 flats. And it was a different kind of development than we'd ever done before. We were using a different building crew. At the time, the products to do it was going into short supply. The prices were going up. Sometimes, for example, we're awaiting a delivery of doors and windows, and then only the doors turn up, the windows are going to be 6 weeks later, and things like that. It was just, so that again was another one where you just got to control what you can control
Mhm.
and manage the rest, because there's nothing else you can literally do.
So, can you talk a bit about the communication that was required? So, whether it was in the first scenario of talking to your landlords and your tenants or
Yeah.
working with tradespeople, your building crews, communication is often a challenge, particularly in small businesses. So, how did you really lean into communicating even when you didn't have new news, right?
Yeah.
So how did you manage through what could have been a crisis? And it was in many ways, but how did you keep it from all unraveling? Like what were
Yeah.
some of the communication best practices that you leveraged?
That's a great question. And it's one that I kind of really learned the answer to when I was managing tenants. Previously, I was doing all the tenant management. Then we brought somebody in to do it and I taught them how to do it. And that's when I was teaching them and writing things down that I realized what are the secrets. One of the biggest secrets is that often when a tenant gets in touch with you, they're not getting in touch to say, oh, well done, this is a lovely room, I'm so delighted. They're getting in touch because something has gone wrong. And not only has it gone wrong, it could have gone wrong for a week before they've called you. But they're coming in, and for them, it's been on for 7 days. It hasn't been fixed, and they're angry. They're coming in the rain, and now this thing is still not working. And they're approaching you. Why isn't this done? You never do this. They're approaching you in that manner. So one of the first things that I learned when I was doing that, because initially I used to go back the same. But what everybody wants is to be heard and understood. So I always say that's one of the things that I taught our team is you just want to understand what's going on. Oh, what else has happened? What else has happened? Is there anything else? What else? Oh, so sorry to hear about all of this. We'll get it sorted as soon as we can. That's it. And they want to know that you've heard, you've understood, you've seen how it's really inconvenienced them, but actually you didn't know about it, but you'll get it sorted out as soon as you could, as soon as you can, and you'll keep them updated. And that's it. And so it's the same for me when I have a problem. For example, when I used to be in corporate and have a problem with my computer, I used to feel very frustrated. And I used to go with that frustration to the computer people.
Right.
So it's not that they're bad people, they're just people. That's how humans roll. It's just being able to absorb that and go back with a loving. And when I say loving, I don't mean non-professional. I just mean from a loving heart. And it's the same, even when you have to be a hard line, say, actually, we can't do what you want us to do in this instance. You can still say it from a position of, oh, I can see where you're coming from. This is what we can offer you, or this is what we can't offer you. And this is why. And so when we were communicating in the lockdown where we didn't know what we were going to say, we explained what we already understood to be the case and how we were going to do what we were going to do to help them. So for our housemates, it's we're going to look after you. Your home is there for you. If you have any problems paying your rent, these are the things that can support you. But do get in touch with us if you lose your job, if this or that happens, we can help you. So that was the message for them. And for the owners of the property, it was this thing has happened. We don't know what it is. We don't know how long it's going to last. We're still managing your properties. We're still going to be paying you guaranteed rent. That was one of the things that we offer. That was a risk factor for us. We're still going to be paying your guaranteed rent. If anything happens that looks like that might not happen, then we will contact you. And in that, we would also tell them what we were doing for them. Like, for example, if 3 of 5 housemates have moved out, then we're covering all that for them. So we would just let them know on a monthly basis what was happening, because they can't appreciate what they don't know about. And if we did need to draw it to a close, which we didn't know how long it was going to carry on, then we've already started the conversation.
Right. And you said this earlier about bringing care to this industry. It sounds like you act as a partner for all the parties involved. And so I haven't heard of any property management companies who were telling tenants, this is how you apply for rent relief, or let us know if you can't pay. Like, they weren't trying to hear that. All they want to know is, do you have the rent or not? And so I love that you all were really bringing that we're all in this together spirit to this, which I can imagine probably gave your tenants some sense of ease, definitely gave your owners some sense of you all are taking care of things. And I'm sure it bared out in the results of, you know, if you were able to keep tenants, able to keep properties during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also have times, I know it sounds like we're very kind-hearted, but we also are realistic. So some of the housemates, no, not the housemates, the owners, for example, we just found that we couldn't work with them because they didn't work on our values, morals, etc. And so we just ended the relationship in a way, as per contract, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, we will make those tough decisions. And I think I used to be a person who wouldn't make a tough decision. And I think your life increases in satisfaction the more you're able to make those tough decisions and also to make them early.
Yeah. Cut it off before you get started. So
because as Oprah said, people show you who they are, believe them the first time.
Exactly. And so, and then the other piece of what you said is starting to have conversations with the owners early on and saying, here's what we are doing. And here's the scenario. Here's best case, worst case. So it's not a surprise.
And the amazing thing was we were able to maintain all of the owners on their full guaranteed rent for the entirety of it. So we were very proud of that. And most of our housemates got through it as well. And luckily, as you had in the US, the government did a lot of interventions for people who lost their jobs so that they could still pay their rent, which was such a blessing.
Right. I think that's a great example of a major challenge, right? And then it's something that was totally out of your control, but you were able to control your response to it. That's excellent. I love that part of it. So Stephanie, tell us how folks can reach out to you or find out more about you, your companies, or your book.
Yeah, well, it's all at rent2rentsuccess.com for the 6-step system to make money from properties you don't own, the ethical way. And the book, you can actually listen to a free copy on Audible, Audible, and that's at rent2rentsuccess.com/audible. If you're not yet an Audible member, Audible gives you 30 days free to listen to the book. Yeah, so that's the best way to get in touch with me. I'm also on TikTok at Rent2Rent Success, and I've got my series, The Naked Truth, over there, where I go more into details with this.
I love it. Well, there are 2 questions I ask every guest. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you those questions. The first one is, what are 1 or 2 songs that are on your power playlist?
Oh, one song that I absolutely love, it just always makes the hair on my body stand up, and it's Labi Siffre, Something Inside So Strong. As I think we all have that core inside us when we feel so weak, when we feel broken down, when we feel we can't go on. We all have that something inside so strong that can get us through any moment. And obviously it's got the much wider message as well, that we won't be kept down and that injustice will not.
Right. I love it. And last question is, what are 1 or 2 books that you feel have helped you thrive in business?
I have a podcast that has helped me thrive in business. And if I can talk about that, and it's the Life Coach School podcast by Brooke Castillo. And I came across the podcast because I listened to a number of other business podcasts, the Get Paid podcast with Claire Pelletreau and the Amy podcast. Oh, it'll come back to me in a moment. But anyway, from there, I heard of this Brooke Castillo podcast. Now, I've never been into coaching per se, although obviously I do believe in mindset. But this life coaching podcast told me a couple of concepts that totally changed. Yeah, I don't want to oversell it as totally changed my life, but in a way they did totally change my life. So yeah, the Life Coach School podcast with Brooke Castillo.
Okay. What were 1 or 2 of those insights? Now I'm like, what was the secret of life that was shared with you?
I'll tell you one, and it was that your relationship with a person is your thoughts about them. It's not what that person does. And I was like, no. And at the time, I was having a struggle because I really wanted to call my mum every week, but she was looking after my nan, who's in her 90s. And every time I would call, she would be so negative about my nan. And I would try and explain, no, nan didn't mean this, nan didn't mean that. I didn't want to hear all this negativity. It really brought me down. So then I don't want to call, but I want to be the person who calls. So I thought, you know what? Let me try this. So my thought was, my mum is negative,
Mm,
i.e., I don't want to call. Then my thought changed to, I'm so lucky that I get to call my mum, brackets, and be irritated. Um, um, but that first part, I'm so lucky that I get to call my mum, and I'm just going to love her how she is. So I would do these calls and I would have that thought, I'm so lucky I get to call my mum. And do you know what? She would complain about my gran for a little bit, and I would just say, yeah, mum, yeah, totally. See where you're coming from. Oh, and then the topic would just move on. She wouldn't spend the whole call because I wasn't resisting. I was just loving her as she was. And the calls became so fun. And I just get to choose that. I'm so lucky that I get to call my mum.
I love that. That is an amazing shift in mindset.
Yeah. And it works with every relationship. I mean, obviously, there's some relationships you don't want to feel good about that person. But there's others that you want to choose to feel something different.
Right. Yeah. When you choose to be in the relationship, but you actually want the relationship to feel good.
Yeah.
I love that reframe. That's amazing. Well, with that, that is a great note to end on. Stephanie, I really, really appreciate you spending time with us. And I am looking forward to all the exciting things that I know you're going to continue to do.
Thanks so much, Nikki. It's been a pleasure to be on the show with you.
It has indeed. Again, I appreciate your time. We've had a great conversation. I've learned so much. And that last note, I'm going to take that and work on that. So I appreciate it. So thank you. Take care, Stephanie.
Thanks. Bye.